What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Paranormies presents the Ahnenerbe Hour. I am Johnny Monoxide, and tonight I am joined by Mr. Adam Haight and Raiden. You guys may remember him from such shows as The Daily Show. What's happening, guys?
What's going on?
Hello.
How are you guys doing? It's a small panel tonight, but Scott is dipping his toes in the is he in the Gulf or is he in the Atlantic? He's somewhere where there's water.
He's out there hunting alligators. That's all I know.
Gator hunting. And Brad, I think Brad's working, and yeah, so that's it. It's just us tonight.
Be a comfy little Paranormies.
That's right.
Yeah, well, we had like breaking news, 2 days ago, so we're kind of like scrambling to get this shit together.
Right, and everybody's like, "Oh, I'm on vacation. Oh, I got to work. Oh, yeah." Well, yeah, there's more important things than that.
Oh, I have a job. Right,
whatever.
There's JFK assassination theories to talk about. Fuck your job.
That's right. We got JFK assassination theories. We got some Paddock update stuff. We got there was even a Sandy Hook release this past week. There was like 1,500 documents released by the FBI. We got a lot of stuff. But you know what else we got this week?
What did they say?
We got. Well, I haven't even gotten into.
What's the basic gist?
Well, there was a one there. They said that one thing that there was a message from Adam Lanza to one of his buddies on Steam, talking about watch the news tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like one of those things where it's like they post on 4chan, it's like watch the news tomorrow about such and such location,
right? And
then something happens.
Yeah, this is like supposedly like an actual FBI document. I haven't looked into those because there's been so many other things going on this week. The stuff with Stephen Paddock and his family. His family just keeps getting weirder and weirder, huh, Adam?
Oh man. So yeah, did you want to do the donations or anything before we?
Yeah, let's do that real quick because we got something cool. We set up a Patreon account so that we can so that you guys can donate to the show, so we can continue to bring you up to the minute coverage of everything. So we have a few pledges here. Pledge from Tricky William, and we have a pledge from Eric Himmler, pledge from Hans Kruger, pledge from Chuck Finks, and Ahnenerbe Wojak. And I don't want to get into we'll get into amounts and whatever later on, but also we got a few regular donations this week, and that is we got from I already did that one. Sorry, I don't want to give it too many shout outs to the same people, but from Matt we got 1488. Thank you, Matt. From Austin says, I love the show. Good to see enjoyable videos produced by men on our side. Please keep it up. You guys are awesome. Currently stationed in a shithole, and this show gives me something to pass the time. Keep fighting a good fight. God bless you all, and hail victory. And that was 1488 from Austin. Thank you, Austin. And excuse me. And from Matt. Nope, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. That's the one from before. This is from Lester Cordell, is 1488. And thank you, Lester. So, yeah.
All right.
So, yeah. So, like I said before, like I said last week, if you guys like what we do here at the Paranormies, and we are planning on expanding our content here. Got some surprises coming up. Not just the Around the Campfire, but we're going to be doing a lot more stuff. You just have to keep tuning in. But like I said, if you like what we're doing, donate to us here at our Patreon. It's the Paranormies Presents, and our PayPal is paranormiespresent@gmail.com. And, you can email us there as well. And, of course, the Twitter is @theparanormies. And our website is www.paranormies.com. We're working on turning that into an actual website and not just a place where you can watch the videos. But, yeah, thank you very much, guys, for all of that.
Yeah, thanks.
Hell yeah. All right, so what do we got with the Stephen Paddock update there, Adam?
Okay, so there's a couple kind of small updates. Nothing really. Well, I mean, it is a big deal. So his his house, which they went and they searched and found a bunch of guns after the shooting and everything, was burglarized at some point. Someone, I think, someone living in the area noticed that the lights were on in the middle of the night, which is a pretty stunning security lapse.
That's huge, especially considering that, you know, this guy's got all kinds of FBI coverage now, all kinds of police stuff going on. And
like, they didn't think to maybe just post up, you know, like 24-hour watch for, because it's kind of a big deal. And who knows, like they said that they was just broken into. They don't know anything about who did it. They said that nothing appeared to be stolen, which is like, okay, well, let's say that's true. Why the hell was someone breaking in there? It's totally plausible that it's just you know, a thrill seeker, just an adrenaline junkie, wanted to break in there, maybe take some pictures and, you know, show off to his friends or whatever. That's a possibility. It should not, you know, it goes without saying that it shouldn't have happened at all. But also, I mean, was something planted there? Was there evidence planted there? Was there evidence that was taken from there? They say it didn't appear that anything was stolen, but if they just, you know, how do they can't really know that.
No, so they broke into Paddock's house or one of his brother's houses?
No,
Paddock's house. Steve Paddock.
The one in
isn't that
Vegas?
Isn't okay? I mean, it's just interesting because that's kind of a pattern you see with the topic tonight of the JFK assassination. You see repeatedly break-ins to people's houses of people who were connected to Kennedy. So I just thought that's kind of like an interesting little coincidence there.
Yeah, it's quite a coincidence.
Quite a coincidence.
So another story related to Stephen Paddock. He apparently had so they found a laptop in the hotel room, and it apparently is missing its hard drive, which seems, you know, kind of weird because, like, okay, it was, so maybe he removed it before, like he brought it there and removed it before the attack. I mean, that's a possibility. Maybe he was doing searches, you know, using it for something. Was it during the shooting that he removed it, assuming that he removed it? I mean, it wouldn't really make any sense for him to just bring a laptop with no hard drive, right?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
He probably had a hard drive with it. You know, maybe he disposed of it at some point. And the thing is, like, how long does it take to get all the surveillance footage? It's not like this guy wasn't on camera 24/7 if he was outside of his hotel room. It's Vegas.
Yeah,
there's cameras everywhere.
We still have absolutely no footage from any of the security cameras because you can't, like, you know, you can't pick up a dime off the floor in Vegas without everybody seeing it from 10 different angles. And there's not a single, I mean, there's more footage of the Pentagon getting hit by an airplane than there is of this guy in and out of this hotel.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe it's possible that he brought it up there with the hard drive, did whatever he needed to do with it. Let's see. I think, or, you know, he might have been using that to plan or calculate things, and then he disposed of it. Or maybe during the shooting, he chucked it out the window or something. Like, the fact that it was brought up at all seems like they'd probably either, you know, it got memory hold or stolen or something like that, and not that, oh, they just can't find the hard drive. It's like, why are they even talking about it then? I guess because they mentioned they had a laptop and people were asking about the hard drive.
Yeah, I don't know why the laptop would have been brought up either. The fact that the hard drive is missing is really kind of it's mysterious. I mean, like, where would the hard drive have gone if he was going to dispose of it? You said he said if he could have thrown it out the window, you would think that it would be found somewhere outside on the property. You know, this whole mystery would be solved. Oh, look, there's a hard drive, and it's shattered into a million pieces. You know, because he threw it from the 32nd floor. Or, you know, then there's the theory that you know, the people this was like some gun deal gone bad and that they committed the crime, like they were the ones that did the shooting. But maybe they took the hard drive with them when they left. Maybe the police found it and they're just covering it up. Or maybe this is just another one of those things that makes absolutely no sense that we're never going to know anything about, because again, the timeline has changed again. I didn't get a chance to watch the video today, but somebody posted another thing about the police timeline has changed. I mean, there's no new information really coming out other than that this weird thing about the hard drive being missing. We still don't have any idea who this guy really is. We don't have an autopsy report from him. We don't have a single autopsy report from any of the 50 people that were killed. We don't even have any medical reports of any of the 500 people that just got winged. That's what I want to see. I'm not even worried about, I mean, I am worried about, but and worry is really not a good word there. But, I'd like to see, these people who have gotten shot. Somebody got shot in the foot, somebody got shot in the leg, somebody got shot in the arm, somebody got shot in, but they're not dead. Where are all these people coming, not coming forward and giving statements and all that kind of stuff? Where are all these people?
All I know about this whole event is I'm never, ever, ever, ever trusting anything the government says on anything ever again. I'm completely, if I thought I was done believing them before, I'm completely done believing anything they have to say now. If they said the sky is blue, I'm not going to believe them. Like, this whole event has just been so absurd and so inexplicable from top to bottom. And we're never going to know, the truth about it. We're never going to know.
Right. That's why I always say, if the government says it's raining outside, I got to go look because I don't believe them.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, this is bad. I mean, this could be another one of those, we hear, I don't want to say the words because I don't want to get this episode taken down, but this could be another one of those things where nobody died. I don't want to say a certain school shooting in a certain place in Connecticut, but I don't need the SHIDF coming after me again. But this just seems to me it's all over with now. Nobody's talking about it anymore, and nobody really is talking about it, other than the fact that what's his name, Eric Paddock. Now, his other brother was arrested on child pornography charges.
Bruce Paddock.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce Paddock.
Of course,
which one's is Eric? The one in Florida? Is that his name?
I think he's the sushi comp guy.
Eric's comped.
Oh, so Eric has thousands of dollars of sushi comped, and Bruce Paddock had thousands of dollars of cheese pizza comped.
Comped.
Yeah.
And of course, his dad robbed bank after bank after bank. Comped.
Yeah, these guys get more stuff comped. I mean, these guys just get all this stuff free. Apparently, it's because they don't work at Taco Bell.
Well, their whole family is a great argument for eugenics in itself. I mean, the apple really does not fall far from the tree, right? You got a bank robbing father, you got a pedophile son on one hand, and you got a mass murdering son on the other.
And then
you got weird
cocaine.
Yeah. You got some asshole getting comped all over the place and wanting to tell everyone who isn't getting comped that they work at Taco Bell.
Yeah, that's an asshole.
He's not just an asshole, but there's the one video where the one guy on YouTube broke it down and they slowed down the stuff and whatever, and they show he's definitely got some sort of a little bit of a sniffling issue going on. So I wouldn't put it past him to have been doing a little bit of the old nose candy there.
Well, he's just a weirdo. But anything else.
But if you've ever known people that have done large amounts of cocaine, which is probably comped for him, but he seems to have a lot of the characteristics of somebody who does that kind of stuff.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, and this whole thing.
He hung out in Vegas all the time, right?
Right. He hung out with his brother who made his family wealthy. Doing what we don't know, but
Stephen took care of people that he loved.
That's right.
He was an arm.
Yeah, and whatever Stephen didn't take care of, apparently they got comped. So then we have what's his name? Jesus.
You talking about Campos?
Campos is it Jesus? His first name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did that thing on Ellen a little while back.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. He canceled. Like he left to Mexico for a little bit. He just like disappeared to Mexico for like a week or something like that right after the shooting. And then he arranges for a bunch of interviews with a bunch of media outlets, cancels all of them. Then here we go. Sorry, I'm looking at a timeline. So fled the country for whatever reason, arranges the interviews, cancels them all, and then disappears according to his union. Then he comes back, does the weird show on Ellen DeGeneres with no audience, and it was like they didn't actually really reveal anything new or interesting. Then he says he's not going to do any more.
She basically coached him through that entire interview too.
Yeah, it was very like transparently unnatural. He seemed extremely uncomfortable the entire time.
Is this the second security guard interview? Because I remember there was another one I think I once brought up, but maybe we're thinking of two different ones or the same one, where it's just like it seems like it's so fake and like his reactions are just strange and unnatural.
Oh,
yeah, that was
talking about a.
No, yeah, it was on DeGeneres. I just didn't know, don't recall if this was the guy or not, but. It's just, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is just like these people think we're idiots, you know.
Yeah, no.
You have to be a complete idiot to buy this.
He was sitting there with, I don't know if it was like one of his union guys or whatever, but
I think it was one of the mechanics.
It was one of the. Okay, so they were sitting there, and Ellen basically coached him through the interview. Like she basically told him, she's like, and this happened, right, and that happened, right, like. And he basically, the other thing that he apparently in that week that he was in Mexico, he put on about 40 pounds, that's quite a feat for a week.
What? What?
Look at the pictures of him from before the interview, and then look at the guy in the interview, and it looks like we may not even have the same guy.
Hey, man, he was just getting thousands of pounds of sushi. Comped.
Yeah, comped.
That's right. Comped.
All this weight gain.
Yeah.
Comped. Absolutely comped.
Yeah, well, hey, if we're lucky, pretty soon this country will get comped.
The day of the comp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of our Vegas update. Do you have anything else on that, Adam?
Oh, this is cool. Apparently, Campos, the security guard, is now staying at an undisclosed MGM Resorts International Hotel for free.
Comped.
Yeah, literally comped.
Literally comped. This is like, yeah. If we titled our shows anything other than, the memes are real. This would be the comped episode.
Oh, here we go. I really think it's about not allowing reporters and lawyers and investigators to get to him, said attorney Mo Aziz. I think they want to make sure he doesn't make any statement that could really become problematic.
Yeah, because we really wouldn't want that, would we?
So MGM is part of this cover-up, which at least with the MGM,
definitely.
you can like take solace. You can kind of take the narrative of like, oh, they just don't want bad press, not, oh, they're cooperating with a fucking cabal of evil Jews.
Oh, so you mean that by cabal of evil Jews, you're not talking about a movie studio?
No, we're not actually talking about a movie studio this time. We're talking about
Damn it.
Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it so fitting that they're putting him in a it's associated with the movie studio. It's like
MGM.
so obvious.
Right, yeah. Well, and then let's not forget now Ellen DeGeneres being associated with the MGM as well. She has slot machines with her name on them and her face on them all over the MGM Grand, all over the Mandalay Bay. All these MGM properties have Ellen DeGeneres' slot machines there. So there's her little tie-in too.
because that's definitely what everyone wants to see. Ellen DeGeneres' face.
Well, I mean, you get actually, she gets millions of viewers every day, so I'm sure that most slots aren't being played. But I don't know if you've ever been to Vegas or been to Reno or Atlantic City where they have these slot machines or whatever. Most of your slot machine players aren't your, guys that your construction workers or your high rollers or your tech guys or whatever. Most slot machine players are boomers and women.
Right.
A lot of women. So like people that watch. They have the Wheel of Fortune is a really big one. Last time I went to Vegas, I remember seeing the Wheel of Fortune slot machine was a really popular one. Like Jeopardy, like all these game shows have all these, like they'll have like a slot machine with the thing on it. So I could see Ellen being popular.
Who the hell is dumb enough to actually use a slot machine?
Well, that brings up the whole point of like, how the hell did this guy make his money? Like we're supposed to believe he was a slot machine ace.
No, he wasn't a slot machine ace. He was a video. I believe it was video poker was his thing, which is just as bad.
I heard originally it was playing slots.
Oh my god!
That's either his brother said that or that was the original story. He was playing slots, and that was the first thing that set me off about like something doesn't smell right about this whole thing. I mean, like they think we're idiots.
Well, yeah, slots. Like I said, like you said, slots aren't exactly, your shrewd, gamer, types. People that know how to play blackjack, that know how to count cards, that know how to play poker, whatever.
It's completely random.
It's 100% completely random. You pull the thing, you push the button, whatever, and the computer does what the computer's going to do. It's set to pay out X amount every X amount of pulls. There's no. I don't know. I mean, to say that somebody's a slot machine ace is. I couldn't even. I have nothing to compare that to. Really.
He's a coin flipper ace.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at least with a coin flip, you have, it's like you get a 50-50 shot.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the whole thing is just just bullshit, man. And even video poker, if we go to that, I mean, like any kind of virtual poker, all skill goes out the window because the whole thing about poker is being able to be in person with the other people and read their expressions and kind of feel out the vibes they're giving off, which is completely out the window if we're talking about internet poker, video poker. So even that's not credible.
Yeah. Right. I know I've played video poker a few times, and it's really frustrating because I like to play regular poker. And for the same reason that I like to play, like you were just mentioning that, like, that's why I like to play regular poker, because you can see the people, you can talk to them, you can get a read on a guy. If a guy's starting to squirm in his seat or sit funny or whatever, you can see what they're doing. But the video poker is 100% random, and you're not even playing against any people. You're basically just trying to make a hand, and your hand is basically dealt to you by a computer. So I don't know. I don't see how this guy, this Stephen Paddock guy, could have been, either a video poker or slot machine ace. There just doesn't compute for me,
Yeah. Not believing anything the government says ever.
Nope.
Completely done.
Have you seen, now there's a YouTube video where they tear apart some of this stuff with a picture of him with the girl where he's holding the shot and his eyes are closed?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Well, have you seen the one where they show where that picture came from, and that his arm, him holding a shot, is actually superimposed on the picture? His arms are actually down at his sides, and they cut the picture off at the elbow, or like just above the elbow, and added that. Yeah, so it's actually not even him. If that picture is to be believed. Yeah, this is another, and it's a really. The more I look at it, the more it looks like that isn't his arm.
It does look like it always looked like a weird picture for me. Like the way he's holding the glass, the way his arm is cocked, it always looked weird to me. I mean, I never really thought about it too much, but now that you bring it up, yeah, I don't know.
They did a better job than that Jeb Bush ad where he had a black hand.
Oh God,
I'm not familiar with this.
Yeah, it was him like standing his hands like akimbo or whatever, and one of his hands was black.
Oh, they edited in somebody else's hand or something. Poor Jeb.
Well, they probably just put his head on someone else.
Yeah, poor Yeb.
And then just forgot to change.
Poor Yeb.
Poor Yeb. You know, he could never catch a break. Not through the primaries, not through none of that. I mean, he got embarrassed by his mother on national television. You know,
that was the greatest primary of all time, and always will be.
Oh yeah, man, hands down. All right. Anyways,
good times.
Really good times.
All right.
All right. So we done? Are we done with the Paddock update, Adam? We got anything else? I mean, I'm sure we could probably do some more.
No, that's it.
I have a feeling we may be talking about this again next week. Spoiler.
Well, all right.
Yeah. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. So we have come up on the 50th anniversary of the JFK assassination, and the FBI files have been released, or most of them have been released. That's another thing. So we'll get into that in just a second.
FBI and CIA, yeah.
FBI and CIA documents have been released. Most of them, because not all of them.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said most of them, not all of them, is what I said.
Oh, not all of them?
Yeah,
there was about 300 that Trump said that they weren't going to release because of basically people that were still alive.
Okay.
I
heard that basically they were going to release everything, but just blank out names.
Oh, I haven't
heard maybe that. Whatever. I might be hearing wrong.
Alex Jones had a big redacted. Yeah, some of it is still redacted. Alex Jones said that there was, he had his big, why aren't these being released fully? But yeah. He's Alex Jones.
Where are the documents?
That's right.
Where are the documents? Why do I have the document?
But yeah,
I'm pretty sure that in '92. The Congress basically said, all right, we're going to declassify these in 25 years, and this is the year.
Right, and you have Oliver Stone to thank for that, because it was in '93, and he released the JFK movie, and it became one of the biggest movies of the '90s, and basically that was what pushed them to pass that law, because the public pressure was so great after that movie. And it's just funny because nowadays Trump is now finally carrying out what that law wanted, and all these liberals are shitting on him, which is so. Even though if it were Obama doing this, they would be all for it, right? It's just so they're absolutely bereft of any integrity whatsoever. Like they're like making cracks about Area 51 and all this stuff, and it's just dude, this was your boy. Kennedy was your boy. He's your icon, and now you're mocking it. So it's just completely ridiculous.
Yeah, well, 6 hours
implying
ago,
implying the left ever had any sort of moral authority.
Right.
6 hours ago, Donald Trump tweeted, "After strict consultation with General Kelly, the CIA, and other agencies, I will be releasing all JFK files other than the names and addresses of any mentioned person who is still living."
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Reasons of full disclosure, transparency, and in order to put any and all conspiracy theories to rest.
Ooh, boy.
And then 4 hours ago, he said, "While not at all presidential, I must point out that the sloppy Michael Moore show on Broadway was a total bomb and was forced to close."
I love this guy, man. It's like
I love it.
Even if like he doesn't end up being like even if we don't get the wall, even if we don't whatever. I mean, like, but he's just like everything about his whole presidency has been pretty funny so far.
I like that he prefaced it with "while not at all presidential."
Right.
What I'm about to say isn't presidential, but
it's so funny, man.
I'm not racist, but
he's completely aware of his own persona, which is what I love about it. It's very refreshing.
I think that he said that because he gets a lot of shit just for being on Twitter in general. For saying while not at all presidential, like he's given because this way people anytime he says anything, the left and especially like retards like Keith Olbermann just go absolutely ape shit anytime he says anything that's not complete. Like you remember the Kofeve tweet, right?
Right. Yeah.
clearly a misspellation. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that big of a deal, but like everybody had like a thermonuclear meltdown and like
It's a Russian code.
yeah, exactly. Or that, or they're just like, look at how retarded he is. Like, dude, you've never misspelled a tweet? Shut up. You know, like. But anyways,
should
yeah,
have left it up.
He should have, yeah. But no, I like that. While not at all presidential, this show sucked. So. All right, so into these. All right, enough about that. Thank you for releasing the documents, President Trump. All right, so here we have.
If you're listening, we love you.
Yeah, I hope he's listening. It'd be really great if he listened to the Paranormies. So we have releases from all kinds of these things. There's archives.gov. Some of these are from the CIA. Some of them are from the FBI. There's so much stuff. Just proves things that a lot of people already knew. You know, we know for a fact now that Oswald was a communist.
Well, what we also know for a fact is what's interesting. Everyone is kind of freaking out, like, "Oh my God, Jack Ruby was Jewish," as if it's any kind of shock that someone named after a rare gem would be of Hebrew descent.
Well, his name is Rubenstein. That was well known.
His real name was Rubenstein, so that's nothing new. But what's new, at least for me, was apparently he had been a member of the Communist Party himself since 1929.
Oh yeah. We were gonna do that for. I was gonna get into Oswald first and then talk about Ruby, but yeah.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
I got it.
It's okay. Since we're on Ruby,
a good piece on Ruby.
Yeah, since we're on Ruby, let's talk about Mr. Ruby, Jack Rubenstein, the strip club owner, who wasn't it? What did he promised lap dances or something to the cops?
Yeah, he gave a lot of comped lap dances and other things to cops.
He was very good friends. He was very good friends with the Dallas police, and that was why he was able to get into where Oswald was being walked to that van and was able to do what he did.
Yep.
Yeah, so Rubenstein was actually working as a translator and an interpreter for Yitzhak Rabin, I believe the Prime Minister of Israel at the time, who just so happened to be in Dallas the day of the shooting.
Yep.
I didn't know that. What I did know is that the typical stuff that he was had very close mob ties. But he worked for Yitzhak Rabin.
Yeah, at least when Rabin was in Dallas at the time, he was happened to be there to be his translator. I don't think he had an extensive relationship.
Oh, okay. I was like, yeah, that's interesting. It was just more like a Jew helping a Jew sort of thing.
Yeah, it seems like that because it doesn't. You wouldn't think that your average strip club owner is going to be, a head of state. It's the head of state of Israel's, personal translator. It just doesn't seem like something that the two don't go together.
Right, but then again, a lot of things you don't expect go together in this thing. So,
yeah, that's true actually. So Jack Rubenstein was a communist member, and he identified Oswald as a communist also through his association with the Fair Play for Cuba Committee.
Correct, which is very interesting because the Fair Play for Cuba Committee obviously didn't exist, and it also the address of the bills that he was handing out when he's on film doing his little Fair Play for Cuba shtick, and he's handing out these bills with these posters. They have an address on them, and they leave to I believe David Atlee Phillips' residence, or if not Phillips, one of the guys who's often fingered in this whole thing.
Really?
Are you talking about Ferry?
Maybe Ferry. It leads to the private residence of someone who's constantly implicated in all things related to the JFK assassination.
Huh. Yeah, David Ferry was a fucking nutbag.
He was a creep. But yeah, regarding Ruby, I mean, one interesting thing is just how deep his mob ties went. He personally knew Sam Giancana. He personally knew Al Capone. He was his chauffeur for a time. He was on speaking terms with all the major mob figures, so he was clearly mobbed up. And so that's definitely an interesting thing because, of course, the mob was pretty much an American intelligence asset running from the 1940s all the way to the 60s. So it kind of, and so that's why my whole thing about the JFK assassination is it's not intelligence or the mob or Lyndon Johnson or this. It's all of them together. Intelligence and the mob are hand in glove. So,
most definitely. I mean, because the mob, while the Italians are like the street level guys, who's actually the head of the mob? Usually,
Anglos.
Yes, it's those Anglos. Yeah,
it's not the Jews who ruined the United States. It's Anglos and Italians.
That's right. It's Anglos and Italians. No, it's Jews. It's Jews. But speaking of Jews, there's a lot of Rubinstein isn't the only Jew involved. I'm trying to look for that one right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jews involved.
Yeah,
there's a pretty interesting memorandum. Problem is it just dumped. Thursday was the big one, and people have been working hard to grab as much as they can. But the sheer volume of the documents released is, people are just finding little snippets that could be interesting and just trying to put it all together. It's difficult to synthesize it all.
It's going to take a while, man.
You talking about that protective research document on Homer Echevarria, where it talks about
that was one of the big ones.
Yeah, in November 1963, informant advised Chicago office that subject was member of anti-Castro Cuban group. Subject allegedly approached informant to provide machine guns for Cuban Revolution 11/21/63. Subject allegedly told informant, quote, "We now have plenty of money. Our new backers are Jews. As soon as we, or they, take care of Kennedy," end quote. Subject expressed a favorable attitude towards LBJ. Yeah. So.
That was definitely one of the more interesting ones that came.
And here's another interesting one about Jews. So this one's weird. This is October 29th, 1962 is the date on this memo. It is from the director of the FBI to the attorney general. He said it's the problem is part of it is damaged, so you only get most of the picture. But it says, "We have an informant who furnishes data concerning criminal matters and who is close to high officials of the Teamsters Union. He has many contacts with hoodlum and gambling elements throughout the United States. He's mostly concerned that his relationship with the FBI not be revealed, since he feels certain that if his cooperation becomes known, he will be killed immediately." So on October 22nd, 1962, the informant went to the office at LA, California, and part of the right half of these paragraphs is just gone, damaged for whatever reason. It doesn't look like it was cut off. It looks like it was torn off, so I don't think it was intentionally done. But it says that he basically has connections that they could, pretty much buy any politician, any official in Cuba, get anything you needed done in Cuba.
I think I know. Are you talking about, I think I saw this document. I think it's talking about Meyer Lansky.
Is it?
I think I saw the document you're talking about. Meyer Lansky, for those who don't know, Meyer Lansky was the Jewish right-hand man of Lucky Luciano, and they basically built the modern American mafia.
He's not an Irish kid?
Are you memeing right now?
I'm memeing right now.
You're memeing, right?
Of course I am, yeah.
Okay.
Of course
good.
I am.
Yeah. But for any normies, because a lot of people have crappy Judars, as we could tell from their surprise over Ruby being Jewish. Yeah, it's definitely Lansky, because he basically built Cuba. For those who don't know, The Godfather Part 2, Hyman Roth, the character was based on Meyer Lansky.
Yeah, 100%, yep.
And that's definitely who they're talking about, because he also had ties to the Teamsters.
Yeah,
And I believe I
just
saw this
yeah.
document you're talking about.
yeah, I just linked it in the chat. It's the most recent one. But what's interesting is the next paragraph. It says, it's damaged, but the informant said his motive was that he's Jewish, and that if Castro follows in the footsteps of other communist dictators, he will eventually turn on the Jews and persecute the Jews under his jurisdiction. And so he says, if the U.S. government is interested in making a deal, he could get money to try and get some shit done in Cuba if necessary.
Right. But it would no way affect national security. He expressed confidence in his ability to accomplish this without any additional contact with government representatives, with a minimum of contacts in private. That's pretty funny. Yeah. And there's the Fidel Castro thing.
Yeah, very curious.
Yeah, it's definitely Lansky.
Oh, yeah. He said,
That's interesting. I did
He
not
said
know that.
he could have Fidel assassinated.
That's like, apparently the CIA was working hard on trying to figure this shit out, and they could have just, paid some Jew to do it.
Right? Didn't the CIA try to assassinate him 300 times? They couldn't do it.
Did they actually try an exploding cigar?
An exploding cigar, and they tried mailing him a poisonous snake.
And they tried slipping him LSD without his knowledge to humiliate him.
That's right. And they tried to electrify his urinal. Not even joking.
That's got to be a funny one when you get to the pearly gates. They ask, "How'd you get up here?"
Well, I was taking a piss, and I don't know what happened. Next thing you know, I'm here. I don't know what happened. But the theory behind that was the salt. The salt in your urine conducts electricity. So if you electrify the little metal grate in the urinal, like with enough amperage, it would electrocute you through your urine stream. And now I've been shocked. Everybody knows I'm an electrician. I've been shocked. I've been shocked across the fingers. I got it. I've gotten 110 volts across, hand to hand. It's gone across my heart. That's not fun. That's like a really wake up call. I can't imagine. Like I've been shocked where like I touched something with my knee, that was live. But I can't imagine getting shocked in the dick. Sorry. Nope.
Yeah.
Especially when you're taking a piss. Because that's one of the more relaxing things. You're just like, you're like taking a leak and holding it for however long.
Very vulnerable.
It's like, fuck, at least let me get ready for it.
Right. But yeah, so they tried to kill Castro a multitude of ways, but apparently all they had to do was, as a matter of fact, this guy, in the next page, it says, on October 22nd, 1962, the informant volunteered to our Los Angeles, California office. He believes he could arrange to have Fidel Castro assassinated. He explained that some of his underworld acquaintances, such as Meyer Lansky, in the past have had close connections in Cuba, whereby they were able to buy practically any Cuban official or to accomplish almost anything they wanted to do in Cuba. He believes some of those underworld figures still have channels inside Cuba through which the assassination of Castro could be successfully arranged. So there is Meyer Lansky's name on an FBI document.
Wow.
Right, and I don't know if Lansky officially had ties to the CIA, but his best friend and partner Luciano certainly did work with the CIA, or at the time was the OSS during World War II. So if he worked with them,
right, probably
Lansky worked with them too.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, they were really buddy. This is to the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI. This is pretty crazy stuff.
No, that's from the Director of the FBI.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at it backwards. It's to the Attorney General from the Director of the FBI,
which would have been from Hoover to Bobby Kennedy.
Right.
At this time.
Yep. Wow.
Yeah. So on the subject of that Homer Echevarria or whatever his name was.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the protective research file that is the Secret Service. They every couple of months they publish it's a list of like any potential threats against the president.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like something sort of like a little DEFCON level where level 3 threat is like basically not really a threat, but it was worth noting. And then level 1 is of course like red alert, very serious.
Yeah, this was a level
take
2
action.
threat. This was a level 2.
Yeah. So and like I said, they collect almost anything. Like this particular document that's taken from is 409 pages of just random stuff. And there's a lot of very odd entries. Like they get a lot of like just weird schizos. Like one dude who said that JFK made him a general and was like, I need to go talk to him. This kind
Sounds
of thing.
Legit. They made one document of some kid who literally wrote to the president. He was like 7 years old. And he just wrote, "You're doomed. Y-O-U-R, doomed."
Yeah.
It's like a little kid shit posting.
Well, here's one that really struck me for the implications of it. This is from Terry Kaplan. And the reason for the interest is a letter to Santa written in December of 1963 stating, "Please send me a gun so I can kill the president." And of course, that's a level 3 threat.
We need to follow that up.
And
what's his last
action
name?
taken. No, it's a little girl named Terry Kaplan.
Oh man, little Jewish girl.
Kaplan. You got to watch out for those girls, man.
So yeah, the action taken, interviewed December 13th, 1963, which is after the shooting. Letter written as a joke and sent contrary to her wishes.
And it also says in 5th grade.
Yeah.
It's like very deadpan.
Prosecution declined. It's like, okay. But here's the thing. Why did the Secret Service intercept a letter to Santa? Now, I have heard a friend of mine...
What are they hiding on the Santa conspiracy?
Yeah. What's in the North Pole?
What does Santa know? Whoa, you guys, that's for another episode, guys. We're going to do that another time.
True. Yeah, that's the one we're going to get whacked for.
What are they hiding?
Well, here's the thing. So why, like, how did they ever come to possess this letter was something that I was thinking. And a friend of mine mentioned a possibility is her parents might have been communists and they were under surveillance anyway. So they were just having all their mail opened. And considering Kaplan, it's kind of makes you a little bit suspicious.
Kaplan is a Jewish name.
Yeah, it's like, Jewish communist parents having their mail intercepted?
Interesting. What were their parents up to?
Well, apparently trying to contact Santa.
Right. All right, so what we got here. And there's so many interesting documents.
Here's another really good one from... Go ahead.
Oh no, where are you finding these? Which report is that?
Here, I'll link the particular document. Like I said, it's really big. I'm just picking out ones that other people have noted and I have pictures from.
The one I find most interesting is apparently 25 minutes in one of these documents. It says that 25 minutes before the assassination took place, over in London at the British Embassy, someone got a call from an anonymous caller telling them that something big was going to happen in Dallas. And the only other time they could, the only equivalent that they could match to what had happened was that there had been a previous call that was of a similar nature regarding regarding Dr. Ward. They refer to this Dr. Ward, and Dr. Ward is linked to the Profumo scandal, which was a big scandal that rocked England in the 60s. So it's kind of interesting. It seems like these sorts of big events that shatter politics. There are people who are high up, who are in the know, who are always alerted ahead of time and always know what to expect.
Well, yeah, this kind of reminds me of the news reporter from it was England again, reporting on Building 7, the World Trade Center coming down 20 minutes before it actually came down.
Really?
Yeah, you guys didn't know that?
It's these Anglos. What are they hiding?
Well, there's also that, the the footage of from like the live footage from 9/11, where it makes it pretty clear that like firefighters seem to have been given the order to demolish it. Like they're not even trying to say like, oh, it burned down. They're like, yeah, there's too much damage. We're just going to demolish it. You need to get out of here because they're going to demolish it soon.
Yeah. Are you talking about pull it? Where they say pull it?
No, that was Larry. Larry.
That was Larry Silverstein.
Yeah, because to be honest, sometimes I feel like some of these things get taken out of context. Like pull it to me just sounds like pull them out, pull the mission.
No, what he said is that was when the building was unsalvageable, and that's when we decided to pull it. Those were his exact words.
Yeah, to me that sounds like it's going to collapse, so let's pull the guys out of there. It's
well, that's the thing, though.
Sure,
the firefighters were making it clear, like, hey, we're going to demolish soon. You need to get out of here.
Right. But here's the other thing.
They weren't even covering it up.
Do the 9/11 thing, but there's. If the building was going to come down, it would be the very first building of its type to have ever come down due to just fire, considering that it was the most high-tech, top of the line, building of its time. That's A, for another episode, and B, something we're gonna get into it down the road again. But yeah, whatever. I get what you're saying though. Didn't mean to cut you off like that, but yeah, we can do 9/11 for another.
With you.
Oh, I know Donald Trump agrees with me. Yeah.
Just with you. He said when he was interviewed on the day of, he said, "I don't think it was just a plane that brought him down." So.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
I also don't believe that. Of course, you heard that one episode, but we're gonna do more. We're gonna do more 9/11. People didn't like the fact that we just did Building 7. We're gonna get more into it. But like, dude, 2 hours is not enough. Like, we could do 2 hours on this and that, and there's a lot of different angles of 9/11 that we could do 2 complete hours on. Anyways, all right, let's get back to JFK.
Do you wanna hear another fun protective research report?
Yeah.
This one is from the individual is George Joseph King Jr. It says a UPI reporter advised FBI in San Francisco on November 22nd, 63, so the day of, that an anonymous person had contacted him and furnished information that during August 1963, the subject and other individuals had discussed assassination of the president. So this individual, George King, was a member of the ANP, the NSRP, the John Birch Society, and he formed his own group called Shrike, which stands for the Society to Harass Reds and Intimidate Kikes Everywhere.
I love it.
That's
great. So beautiful. Is this guy a time traveler? Is he one of us trolling back in time?
He doesn't sound gay.
That sounds pretty not gay, but I mean, like, man, that's like straight TRS right there. Like, he would be right at home. Like, it's like, why didn't we think of that?
Shrike, that's awesome. But speaking of TRS and memes, and TRS memes, where's the document? Oh, right here. Excuse me. The top secret document, it says, in view of the, in triple parentheses, assassination attempt in the United States. They have the Echo meme right there. Yes.
Assassination.
Yeah, 3 parentheses.
Yep. In view of the...
It's like they're trying to tell us something.
I wonder what they could be trying to tell us. Is that what happened to Cuckington? He went back in time to tell us something?
He's time traveling.
He's definitely gay. Anyways, that's a whole other subject. But yeah, there's a TRS meme. Is TRS confirmed for being CIA or what? No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I guess this really seals the deal at this point.
I don't want to give any single spurg. I know, right? We're gonna hear about this one.
They're gonna clip that little 2-second of you saying TRS confirmed for CIA, and they're just gonna play it over and over again. Conclusive proof.
Johnny said it right
alongside
there.
with Mike Enoch being a total Jew.
Yeah, but no, there's so much information. Yeah, Adam, are you done with those? Or have we exhausted all the funny ones?
I think that's all the funny ones. Yeah.
There's going to be so many new books being written now, like over the next couple of years because of this. Like once they sort through all this stuff, this is going to take at least a good year to sort through it.
Yeah, there's, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and, well, I don't know, thousands of pages. There's a lot. You know what, Adam? I was scrolling through these. A lot of these.
Oh, absolutely.
These PRS interest reports are Puerto Ricans. Yeah. Scrolled through quite a few. Here's another one. Jose Benjamin Ortiz Belaval. He's a Puerto Rican pro-independent for the pro-independencia or whatever. I don't speak Beaner, but he reportedly stated that if a Puerto Rican had assassinated the president, it would have been a perfect act and one worthy of praise. So,
well, they tried to do that actually. They tried to kill Truman.
Oh, the Puerto Ricans did?
Little known fact. Mm-hmm. Fun fact.
They're not getting enough Gibbs or something?
Oh, they wanted independence at the time, so at the time they at least respect. Unlike today.
Interesting. Yeah, I just scrolled through and it's like 15 or 16 of them in a row are Puerto Ricans.
Those hot-headed Latins, man.
That's right.
It's very spicy.
First Puerto Ricans with Truman, then Cubans with Kennedy.
Yeah, that's right. The Cubans and the Jews. So what do we have now? We have the Jews and the Cubans assassinated him with LBJ giving the go ahead.
Don't forget the Italians, man. You're not letting the mafia off that easy.
I know, but I'm going to give it to Meyer Lansky. It's the Jew, so.
And of course the Anglos.
Oh yeah, of course.
The Anglos, we have to have our hand in everything.
It's true. Listen, we're coming up on the end of the first hour.
So here's another
Adam.
Interesting. Hello?
I said we're coming up on the end of the first hour. Do you want to keep going with this, or what do you want to do?
Oh, I just wanted to mention real quick. I don't have a ton to go on with this, but so you might have recalled that a bullet was recovered on JFK's stretcher at the Parkland Memorial Hospital.
Yes.
And here, I'll just post a quick link to it. You can just take a look at it. They have pictures of it from multiple angles. It's almost I'd say it's about 3 millimeters long or 3 centimeters long. It's in pretty good condition. Now, the Carcano rifle, if I recall, I could be totally wrong, but I think that one was kind of notorious for just sort of passing through, like it being too penetrative and not doing too much internal damage. And obviously it has been cleaned up if there was ever any blood on it, because it's in, like, the surface of it in terms of like cleanliness is pretty pristine. But even just the general shape of it doesn't look like it's really been through too much. It does look like it had a casing on it at some point. I don't know if they just, because there's speculation that someone involved just sort of put it there and was like, hey, look, I found this bullet. It definitely looks like it's been fired. But I don't know. I can't really, I'm not, an expert on ballistics and that kind of thing, but it looks like it's in pretty good shape for a bullet that bounced around some dude's body.
Yeah, it doesn't really look like it's hit.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing about everything related to the rifle is really suspicious. Like, for example, the fact that we're on the stock. It's like, and his mother says it's because they put his hand on it after he was dead. Like, how are there no fingerprints on the trigger or on the trigger guard or anything related to that?
Now,
the fact that
will...
you could only fire so many bullets, and so like you can't fire 3 bullets in the period of time they said he did with that rifle. Like, everything about it just stinks.
Yeah, regarding the fingerprints, I could... It's suspicious that they only found it on the stock, but I also would not have been surprised at all if they couldn't recover any prints from it, because fingerprints are actually really tough to recover. Mm. But the fact that it's on this stock, like, it would have been less suspicious if they just said, "Oh, we didn't find any," or at least said they found it somewhere on the, where it would be obviously.
Right, because their excuse would be that the police totally mishandled the investigation. They didn't wear gloves, so the prints might have gotten wiped off. Well, you would expect the prints to get wiped off the stock because they would probably pick it up by the stock. You would not expect the prints to get wiped off the trigger or the trigger guard, because why would a policeman be putting his finger on the trigger all willy-nilly, right? Mm-hmm. So that just, that's a red flag right there.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I had about the bullet.
Okay. Or you guys want to take a quick break and then come back and do the rest
I'm looking
of
at this bullet, and it does look pretty clean. Like, it doesn't look distorted at all.
Yeah, the overall shape of it is fine. There's some dings in it. There's some scratches. You can see where the rifling, I'm pretty confident this bullet was fired at some
but it doesn't
point.
look like it hit anything, though. When a bullet hits something,
exactly.
The end of the bullet is flattened.
It's not crushed or
mushroomed out or something, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't know. This looks like, it's a weird looking. It's in very, very pristine condition for having been fired into a human being. Anyways, all right. Let's you guys want to take a quick break and then come back, or you just want to keep going and just do like one long show today? What do you want to do?
Let's take a break.
All right.
I'm good with that.
You want to do Byron's song?
Yeah, you have a link to it, right?
Yeah, Bugman Blues is
yeah, that's a good one.
Byron De La Vandal. We'll play this and we'll be back.
I'll have a little I'll be strumming and I'll have a little
well, it's going down.
Oh, cool. I'll be strumming, yeah, whatever, fuck it, I'll just do it.
Honey, thank you once again. That frozen dinner came out perfectly. I love it when you microwave for me. I'm happy as can be. It's 7:30, off to work. Stuck behind an endless line of cars. I wish I didn't have to go so far. I'm happy as can be. No one told me that life was ever easy. No one said it'd be this hard. Try I might to come off light and breezy. Play another round, take another card. I'm happy as can be. My keyboard is my only friend. The guys at work, they don't speak English well. We never talk much, so it's hard to tell. I'm happy as can be. Eight hours in this sullen room. I'm wearing khakis that don't fit me right. least I made it and my color's white. I'm happy as can be. Daddy told me that life was what you made it. He bought his house at 25. Kid me dealer, you showed me how you play it. Take another drink just to feel alive. I'm happy as can be. I send my daughter off to school, and there's this one girl that she calls a friend. I can see how this is going to end. I'm happy as can be. I didn't make the football team. Graduated with a 4.0, but where did my sense of a purpose go? I'm happy as can be. Suffering from these bugman blues, doing everything they told me to. Ever think that they would lie to you? I'm not as happy as can be.
All right, everybody, we're back. This is still the Paranormies presents the Ahnenerbe Hour. I'm still Giant Monoxide with Adam Haight and Raiden. We are getting deep into the JFK data dump. In the first hour, we were talking about a bunch of stuff that came out about, you know, who was involved and who may have been involved. And Raiden, I believe you were talking about something earlier where we were looking for somebody's address or something, right?
Yeah, so I brought up the fact that the Fair Play for Cuba committee was linked to someone's private address or private residence of some kind. And I remember who it was. This guy by the name of Guy Bannister, who was a former employee of the FBI, a assistant superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department, and was later named by Jim Garrison, who was the district attorney of New Orleans, who did the whole investigation into the assassination. That it named him as a suspect, and it's interesting. Those leaflets that Oswald is seen handing out in those grainy films, doing his little Fair Play for Cuba routine. They have an address on them that's 455 Camp Street, and that's literally right next door to Guy Bannister and Associates. So,
So you're saying Fair Play for Cuba wasn't a real organization?
I know, right? You can't just believe everything you see, right? I mean,
I'm gonna have to cancel my membership.
Shocking concept, I know. You'll be like, they'll have lost 50% of their members then. So it's just it would literally be you and Oswald posthumously. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing.
So
But so
okay, so
yeah,
now,
what?
So yeah,
Yeah, go for
that's
it.
really weird. So he was handing out flyers to a non-existent organization.
Well, I mean, he was representing a non-existent CIA front organization, of which there were many at the time, especially surrounding Cuba, because, of course, the guy was a CIA asset.
Right. He was also a communist. So
So that's interesting. I mean, he never really had the evidence of him being a communist is pretty weak, in my opinion. He never really had a real grasp of communism. He never really said anything really substantial that would indicate he really knew anything about it.
you don't think
He
him
did
going,
defect
let's say him defecting to Russia and all that, and
for a couple years, and then he comes back because he doesn't like it. And when he comes back, it's just interesting because then later on, when he's arrested by the police after the assassination, he's like, "You're treating me like the Russians would treat someone." And it's like, is that really what a communist would say about great mother Russia, about the Soviet Union?
And not only that, but when he came back from Russia, he was married to like a police officer's daughter.
right?
Was he? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he defected to Russia, he gave up his U.S. citizenship, correct?
He didn't actually. He wrote a letter saying he renounced it, but didn't actually file any paperwork to actually do it. So
Right.
they were like, well, he's technically still a U.S. citizen.
Oh, so that's.
I mean,
how
the
he
fact
got
that they let him come
Okay.
back from the Soviet Union anyway is like, yeah, he's a spook.
Right, there's that, and
Yeah.
there's also the fact that the KGB never trusted him. And they always consistently thought that he was an American agent.
I think it's pretty clear that he was.
Oh, it's obvious that he was.
Yeah. That makes.
I mean,
makes
maybe
a lot
perhaps
more
not
sense.
obvious. Maybe that's overstating things, but I believe that he was.
Yeah. After that, it makes more sense now. I didn't know that about the Fair Play for Cuba thing being a fake organization. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, all that stuff is just total BS. All this stuff about Oswald. We can get into more of Oswald in a moment because there's a lot to talk about there. But I thought we would talk about LBJ and talk about. Well, I mean, I guess I could just basically give my whole take on him and his role in the whole thing. If you guys want to go with that.
Yeah, please do. I know, in my opinion, LBJ had the best motive for doing it. He wasn't exactly. I mean, he was the vice president, but the Kennedys were pretty much out to get him. To get rid of him, and by
Right.
getting
Right.
rid of JFK, it would have put him, next in line. Obviously, he's the vice president for the presidency.
Right. He had all the means. He had all the motive. I kind of wrote down a list of points regarding the motives he had. For one thing, he lost all political clout when he became vice president. The vice presidency throughout American history has been known as the place where basically political careers go to die. John Nance Garner, to the first vice president to FDR, famously called it not worth a bucket of warm piss. It's not the place. It's really not the place you want to be. It's only very recently that it's been thought of as a stepping stone to the president himself. And even then, the vast majority of vice presidents never go on to be president. There's that. There's the fact that
That's really weird.
Yeah, I mean, most vice presidents don't become president.
No, they don't.
Only
It's only
minority
recently it was just Bush Senior. Trying to think who else.
Bush
Nixon,
Senior,
right?
Bush Senior,
Bush Senior.
Nixon, but
Oh,
even
that's right. Nixon and LBJ.
yeah, and even Nixon. I mean, he had to try twice for it. He didn't even get
That's
in
true,
the first time he tried to run
Right.
for president. So there's that. There's the fact that LBJ had a massive antipathy for the Kennedys. He disliked John Kennedy, and he hated Bobby Kennedy. The two of them clashed tremendously. They were kind of like Like you know how you see like two stray dogs will meet each other like in an alley, and then like instantly the hair will rise up on their bodies, and they'll start growling like out of nowhere.
Yeah,
It was like that. That he ferociously hated Bobby Kennedy and didn't like either of them, and they didn't like him either, and they tried repeatedly they were intent on basically getting him off the ticket. They didn't like him personally either. They called him Colonel Cornpone behind his back.
Yeah, it was Colonel
like
Cornpone. What do they call his wife? It was Colonel Cornpone and Lady something. Shit, I can't remember.
Right. Yeah, some kind of derogatory name, making fun of how they're like kind of making light of them as bumpkins, essentially.
Right. The one thing they had in common, LBJ and JFK, is they were both like serial womanizers, though.
That's true. The Kennedy was a huge womanizer, and you get the feeling that Johnson was kind of compensating and was really doing it to keep up with Kennedy. A fun fact: the average partner count for an American male in his lifetime is 7. Kennedy's was 33 in a span of 3 years.
Yeah, it was 33 during his time in office. He would be
his time in office.
He would be considered to have what do they call that? To have like a hypersexual disorder or whatever. You know,
he was a sex addict.
He was definitely an addict. He had several girlfriends, and they weren't just like one-time things. A lot of them were like over the course of like 6-7 months.
Right, exactly. And there's one girlfriend that the last one he had before he died that we can get into, Mary Pinchot Meyer. But we'll get to her in a moment. So there's that. There's the fact that he hated the Kennedys, and the Kennedys hated him. He was being investigated, and a lot of these investigations of his associates, like Billy Sol Estes and some of his other close kind of what's the word? Not students, but I guess kind of proteges, if you will, were pretty clearly being pushed or encouraged by the Bobby Kennedy Justice Department, because they basically wanted to get him removed from the ticket, and the best way to do that was to put the cloud of corruption over his head, which wasn't
he did,
which was by no means undeserved either, because Lyndon Johnson was corrupt to the core. So it's not like they were making smoke where there was no fire. So Johnson was basically facing political oblivion. He was either gonna end up dying as vice president, or he was going to be basically have his career ruined as he left in a cloud of scandal. And I say die because another interesting fact about Lyndon Johnson: every male Johnson, going back generations, died of a heart attack in his early 60s. And Johnson calculated that at Johnson's age, he would have been in his early 60s by the end of 8 years of Kennedy. And of course, Johnson, in fact, did die of a heart attack in 1972 at the age of 64. So Johnson basically knew he was running on borrowed time. He famously said, and I think this is a really revealing quote by him, when he was asked, well, hey, why are you settling for vice president? Why do this? It's because, they're bringing up the fact that vice presidency, it's like the way you end a career. It's not the next step on a career. He said, quote, I'm a gambling man. And he said something to the effect that, I don't think this Kennedy fella is going to live out all 8 years or something like that, which you could read as really sinister, as him foreshadowing his intentions to do what I assert he did. What I would say about that quote is basically it's probably in reference to the fact that everyone in Washington knew Kennedy had sick health. He was a very sickly guy. But in any case, it's damning enough that you're basically planning to profit from another man's death, whether passive or active. And so it's not too much of a leap to go from being a passive participant to an active participant.
That seems like kind of a lapse in and like composure to say something like that. Like, yeah, well, hopefully this fucking guy, hopefully the president will die and then it can be me. Like, that's really cold.
Well, that wasn't the only lapse he had. Johnson was a very emotional. The night before the assassination, he was meeting. He met. I forget if he met with both Kennedys or he met with just Bobby, or he met with what was called the Irish Mafia, which would have been Kenneth O'Donnell and some other aides of Irish descent. But after the meeting with whoever they were, he met with one of his mistresses, and he said, "They're never going to embarrass me again, those sons of bitches. That's not a threat. That's a promise." And his mistress is on record as recounting those words, and you can find that interview online. That's not a threat. That's a promise, and that's the night before the assassination. So there's a lot of kind of times where he makes very revealing quotes like that. So what else? So finally, I just want to talk about his personality flaws. Johnson, to put it mildly, Johnson was a very flawed personality. He basically, he was power hungry is not even an adequate phrase to describe him. Like, this guy wanted to be president since he was like 5 years old, and he was prepared to step over anyone in his way in order to get to the presidency. He was able to just shiv people in the back and just abuse them and use them as tools, and saw anyone who was in his way as an obstacle that was to be dispatched and discarded. He was an extreme narcissist. I just learned this earlier today. When he was president, he was visiting the Pope at the Vatican, and he gave the Pope as a gift a bust of his own face.
Wow.
That's so tone deaf.
Yeah.
And there's a famous photo where he's looking at the gift as the Pope is holding it, and he's got this big pleased smile on his face, like he's just so pleased with himself. And he would always use LBJ, like he was obsessed with his own name, like LBJ. He wore big belt buckles that would say LBJ on them. He named his wife was Lady Bird Johnson, LBJ. His daughter, Linda Bird Johnson, LBJ. He had the LBJ Ranch. Everything was LBJ. Because he was basically like I said, he was an extreme narcissist.
Didn't he name his dog LBJ?
I don't know what his dog's name was, but
it was like Little Beagle Johnson or something.
Probably. But yeah, he was just just extremely vicious man. Not just narcissistic, but an extremely just cruel and just very nasty person. So those are his motives, or the facts about him. There's just one other thing. There's just a couple other things I want to mention. There's the fact that he knew about the parade route because he was in Texas at the time. He went there several months prior, and Texas was his state. He knew the route that the parade was going to take. He also knew he was also good friends with John Connolly, who was also in the car at the time. He had opportunity. He had motive. And then finally, I just want to mention one very interesting thing, that he formed the Warren Commission rather than let the Attorney General at the time, the president's own brother, conduct the investigation, which is just like, I mean, who would be more motivated to carry out an investigation?
Oh, yeah.
But
Speaking of the Warren Commission, we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, the Warren. Now that you mentioned that, I want to talk about the Warren Commission afterwards.
Yeah, and just just one more thing. So it's just like, why would he do that? And why would he not let the president's own brother investigate the president's death, and instead assemble a commission of people who hated the president, people like Alan Dulles, who was fired by the president? And isn't it convenient and interesting that the Warren Commission never called Johnson himself to testify? Very convenient. So that's my thing. I think he had the motive, he had the means, he had the opportunity. And I think, especially given his various statements and the fact that he knew he was going to die if he waited his turn the normal way, and that he was going to be dropped from the ticket in disgrace if he didn't do what he did, I think he had all the reason and the opportunity in the world to basically be the prime mover in the assassination.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that 100% that he was the
So I don't know. You guys can jump in if you like.
Would you say he initiated it?
I would say, I mean, it's so hard, like, who initiates. I mean, a lot of conspiracies are kind of organic, and it's not like one person. So I use the word prime mover, so maybe that was me kind of being a little bit ornate. But, I mean, I don't know if it was like his idea and else, or it kind of like happened simultaneously, but he was definitely one of the major principals. I'll say that.
It seems like there was a lot of people that were interested in killing JFK, and they all were like, "Oh, you want to kill JFK too?" And I want to kill JFK. Yeah, I've been wanting to kill this guy for like 8 years. They're like,
absolutely.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of people who had motive, you know, and to kill him, but I think LBJ was the one who had the most means. I mean,
he had the most motive,
and he had the most motive, definitely. But I mean, he was the vice president. He could get things done, I think, more than, say, well, for sure Oswald, but
he knew everyone in Washington. He knew literally everybody, because he was the most powerful Senate leader in the history of the United States Senate, bar none.
Right, exactly.
He knew literally everybody. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're right. He said he was the most powerful Senate leader in the history of the Senate. So he knew, who to talk to.
I am the Senate.
Right.
That's not an exaggeration when it comes to Johnson.
No, it's true. Did you guys read this thing from the thing where it says that the KGB knew that LBJ had something to do with it?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that.
What did they say exactly?
The one paragraph. Just saying, I scrolled past it 1 second. Shit, I just lost it.
I think I know which...
It's like 12 pages.
Let's see here. Yeah, okay, so this is from a source who was in the Soviet Union, who was talking about their reaction to the assassination. And according to the source, they were fairly surprised. They were not really expecting it.
Oh, wait, are you looking at the one? Okay, so the one I have says, on September 16th, 1965, source reported that the KGB residency in New York City received instructions approximately September 16th, 1965, from KGB headquarters in Moscow to develop all possible information concerning President Lyndon B. Johnson's character, background, personal friends, family, and from which quarters he derives his support and his position as President of the United States. Our source added that in the instructions from Moscow, it was indicated that now the KGB was in possession of data purporting to indicate President Johnson was responsible for the assassination of the late President John F. Kennedy. KGB headquarters indicated that in view of this information, it was necessary for the Soviet government to know the existing personal relationship between President Johnson and the Kennedy family, particularly that between President Johnson and Robert Ted Kennedy.
So what's that from?
It's a top secret document from...
This is from J. Edgar Hoover.
No, but I mean, is this from the recent document dump?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is titled The Reaction of Soviet and Communist... This is titled The Reaction of Soviet and Communist Party Officials to the Assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
Well, the Soviets didn't want it. I mean, Khrushchev famously wept when he heard about Kennedy being shot because he was like, "This is our last chance of peace down the drain."
Yep.
Because remember, Kennedy and Khrushchev signed the world's first nuclear arms reduction or nuclear arms control treaty.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which was, I think, one of the reasons that got him killed ultimately.
That's one of the things, yeah. There's so many reasons. And there's so many reasons. You know, you have their father promised the mafia all this stuff, and then Bobby Kennedy goes back on all of his promises. You have Kennedy wanting to shut down the Federal Reserve. You have, this whatever, not the non-proliferation treaty, but basically what did you just call it?
The atmospheric test ban treaty.
Right. That's something that could have gotten him killed. There's so many things. The Cubans, with the Cuban Missile Crisis, there's so many, like we said earlier, there's so many people that wanted Kennedy dead.
And speaking of the Jews,
and speaking of the Jews, and speaking of the Warren Commission, you guys remember that, right? Do you know how many? Do you guys know how many Jews were on the Warren Commission?
In fact, I do.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Well, famously, Arlen Specter.
Yes, famously. Okay, so of the 1, 2, 3, 4,
There's
5,
26.
6. Well, I was going to go down just the assistant counsel first. So
Okay.
You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Out of the 14 on the assistant council, 10 of them are Jews. On these, 10 of the assistant council are Jews. On the staff, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 13 members, and 7 of them are Jews. So you have over half of the Warren Commission are Jews. Jack Ruby's name is Jack Rubenstein.
Jews.
And even the guy who filmed the assassination, Abraham Zapruder,
Yes,
a Jew.
Which people suspect there are multiple versions of that film, and that's the sanitized version. Because
I think there's no doubt that there's multiple versions.
yeah, there are multiple versions of the Zapruder film, and it's clearly doctored because there are slides missing from it, and people don't know this, but there are other films of the assassination besides the Zapruder film.
Yeah, they're not as famous for whatever. I guess everything a Jew touches kind of becomes famous, but
Right.
you had better marketing for it.
I was wrong. The staff is only 12. I counted 13, but 7 out of 12 of the staff were Jews. That's even a higher percentage. So you got this
Like the
group
12
of people,
tribes.
You got this group of people. Yeah, why is it always 12? You have this group of people who make up around 1% of the United States population at the time. They are over half of the staff and over half of the council for the Warren Commission. Starting to think there's something up with these Jews, man.
And speaking of Jews, there's some. I mean, Israel had a pretty big investment in taking JFK out too.
Oh yeah.
Here's a quote from JFK. I went to this party, Kennedy said. It was given by a group of people who were big money contributors and also Zionists. And they said to me, "We know that your campaign is in terrible financial shape." The deal they offered to me was that they would finance the rest of the campaign if I would agree to let them run the Middle Eastern policy of the United States for the next 4 years.
Sounds
What does
legit.
Kennedy do? He takes the money. And then he starts increasing aid sent to Egypt. And in 1962, after Israel made some kind of retaliatory strike in Syria, he instructed the UN ambassador to vote to condemn Israel in the Security Council. And
So Kennedy was basically like, "Lol, fuck off."
Yeah, and
Thanks
he
for
knew
the
about
dough,
the
now
nuclear
get
facility.
fucked.
He knew about the Dimona nuclear facility, and he ordered an inspection of it. And Abba Eban, I don't know who this guy is, someone who was in the know apparently, he said that when the team of the American inspectors arrived at Dimona to make sure they weren't building weapons, because France actually gave Israel a lot of nuclear technology for power.
Thanks, France. Thanks for that.
Yeah, this guy Ibani says it cost us a lot of money to arrange it so their inspectors wouldn't find out what was going on. They had false walls, doorways, elevators hidden, dummy installations, basically to hide their weapons program that they took underground.
Yeah,
Kennedy was assassinated. Yitzhak Rabin was in Dallas. And according to Michael Karpin, this Israeli author, as soon as Johnson entered the White House, all the pressure on Israel on the Dimona issue ceased. And Kennedy's final budget in 1964 was about $40 million in aid to Israel. And Johnson's first budget in the fiscal year of 1965, he set aside $71 million. And then doubled that in 66 to $130 million.
Right, and Johnson was the first president to sell offensive weapons to Israel, whereas before they were strictly defensive.
That's right.
And was the first person to allow Israel to use their own foreign aid money to buy our weapons. So we were basically paying them to buy our stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God! He's telling you, man. There's something up with these Jews.
And then, of course, we have the USS Liberty.
Oh my God!
So it's just,
don't even get me started on
that. That happens under Johnson. So
Johnson fucking let that happen too.
He did. He called the planes back.
He let all those people just die.
Man, he was a piece of shit.
He's my least. He's one of my least favorite people in American history. He was a major piece of shit. That guy.
He is. But that's also what makes him very interesting. He's a really fascinating character. He's kind of like this Uriah Heep, sort of spindly scarecrow-looking character that's always scheming and plotting for power. He's incredibly craven, incredibly cunning, with an almost animal-like intelligence. Like, he knew exactly, within like 3 seconds, he could size you up and know exactly what your weaknesses are, whether it be women or whether it be you're insecure about something or whatever. He could fill you out and instantly know whatever your insecurity or your weakness was. He would, like the devil almost, and he would just be able to just pinpoint exactly how to hurt you. He also knew how to bribe you. Like, the famous Johnson treatment consisted of a mix of bribing, cajoling, begging, pleading, crying, and then threatening and like intimidating, all in like maybe the span of 30 seconds. He's the most fascinating.
Learned that from his Jewish friends.
I mean, he didn't really grow up around a lot of Jews. He came from Texas, and he learned it really from his father. He came from an interesting family history, which I won't get into because it'd be too long to get into. But basically, how I would define Johnson's psychology is a mixture of the fact that he knew he was going to die relatively young, and his need to get away from the extreme grinding poverty of where he grew up in Texas, where they didn't even have electricity until the late 1940s into the 1950s, or running water or plumbing. He came from a town of like less than 100 people. So it's a very fascinating character.
Very evil man, to say the least.
Very evil.
What do you how do you tie in George Bush to this? Do you know anything about that?
Well, what's interesting?
Oh, he doesn't remember where he was when it happened.
Right.
Well, of course, he may not remember. We remember he was in Dallas on the day of the shooting, like Yitzhak Rabin, and like a lot of these people who keep turning up, related to the Cuba invasion and related to all this sort of stuff. They were all in Dallas on the day. It's very interesting how all the people who stood to benefit from Kennedy's death were in Dallas.
Right. What do you think Bush's involvement was with it?
Well, Bush was at this time would have been in charge of Zapata Oil Company, which was a CIA front. So he was a CIA asset, and of course later would become director of the CIA himself. So at this time,
almost directly afterwards.
In the 1970s, I think either before.
Oh, was it the same? I thought it was
after.
late 60s. Okay.
No, I believe memory serves sometime in the 70s, but he was definitely CIA connected at the time, so it doesn't really matter. Like, he was a CIA asset, and yeah, I mean, at this time, I mean, what was your question? Like, what his role was at the time, or?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, he would have been like kind of the money man because he came from like a wealthy family. He came from the Bush dynasty, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
So
of course.
he was the guy. He was the guy who would be paying people off and things like that. But it's just interesting. Like, he was in Dallas, Rabin was in Dallas, Johnson was in Dallas. All these people that stood to benefit from him from Kennedy's death were in Dallas.
Yeah, interesting. Like, huh? How that very convenient, very coincidental.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to me just how many people were involved.
Yeah, I mean, I would say several people.
Because, like, you know, a pretty common sort of like low-tier rebuttal, if you can even call it that, to conspiracy theories is like, oh, well, if this many people were involved, then somebody would have talked at some point.
People did talk.
Yeah, they did. And, like, there's an overwhelming, what do they call it, preponderance of evidence that there was some conspiracy to assassinate him and then cover it up.
The reason that everybody would have talked thing, or somebody would have talked line, that would have been convincing to me a couple years ago. But what the people who repeat that line fail to understand is they're assuming that everyone is rational. So someone would have talked, well, yeah, but it doesn't mean people would have believed them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, what do people crave more than the truth? What do people value more than the truth? They value respectability. And what's less respectable than going against the mainstream narrative that the serious people on TV wearing suits with serious voices and projecting this serious gravitas, what do they believe? Oh, they believe the very stupid theory, but it's so dumb that only a smart person can convince himself is actually not stupid, that one man assassinated the president of the United States.
Right, that people actually believe, the fact that people actually believe that. Actually, wasn't it, I saw a thing that was from 2011, but they said that 70% of the people in the United States polled don't believe that there was one shooter. They don't believe the official story.
Right, and 25% of the people do, which is the same number of people who supported George Bush at the end of his presidency. So that tells you something.
Well, 75% of people polled. I'm pretty sure they didn't go into Detroit and ask Taekwon and Tyshawn what they thought about the Kennedy assassination.
Well, they would have been all for it, man. I mean, about blacks, it's if you ever want to break the ice with a black coworker or whatever, just bring up a conspiracy theory, man, because they do not need any warming up at all. They'll go right into it.
Yeah, really? Man. Why do you have to get us?
They're like, yeah, man, it was definitely gay. Like, oh shit, you're right.
That's
like, bring up.
It's weird though. No, that's. I mean, that might be true, but like most of the conspiracy forums and stuff online are like all white.
No, that's because black conspiracies are like Hotep, we was Kangs, like just ridiculous.
Well, they're very big into the whole Illuminati thing as well.
Yeah,
they believe like all that
Tupac
stuff about
Illuminati.
Like yeah, Jay-Z with the hand symbol he does, all that stuff. I mean, they're very conspiracy friendly. They don't need any breaking down of their skepticism at all.
They're already there. Are they even capable of skepticism?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so we have Before we got on to blacks and conspiracies, where were we at? We're at multiple shooters.
Well,
we're talking about the multiple shooter thing now.
Well, we were talking about who stood to benefit.
Yeah,
We both
And
know.
so I brought up
a lot of guys
LBJ,
did.
and I was
Yeah.
hoping. Yeah, I brought up LBJ, and I think he was the prime mover, the principal behind it all. Without whose approval, it wouldn't have happened because he had to go along with it in order to step into Kennedy's shoes, right?
Right,
If he
well,
hadn't
let's-
gone along with it,
Let's think.
there would
Let's
have
think
been
who else would have benefited?
Right.
Well, what happened after Kennedy was assassinated? Okay, so the Immigration Act went through. Civil Rights Acts went through. Who could those have benefited?
Well, let's be careful there because Kennedy actually was for those things as well. He was pushing. He would have passed those things.
You think so?
Yeah, he wrote. He was putting out a pamphlets. He wrote like a pamphlet calling for exactly what became the '65 Immigration Act, and of course, Kennedy was the one who originally introduced the Civil Rights Act as well. So I like Kennedy in some ways, but I'm not going to pretend that he was like some kind of like secret alt-right approved president who got killed because he had the right ideas on every single issue.
Oh,
I
don't
mean, I
believe that
know
either.
he did write that stuff about Hitler in his diary. That's true and all, but he also was kind of a man of his times, and he kind of he was keyed into what was really going on some level, and wanted to kind of go against the current on some level, but on other issues, he was kind of going along with everyone else.
I think that I don't know.
Yeah, he never really seemed like our guy. He just happened to make enemies with the same people that we are, sort of enemies with.
Right.
The one way he would be called our guy was that he wanted to end the Cold War. And that, I think, is probably the biggest. That's where most of the evidence lies. Like, if we want to talk about like hard material to go off of, well, what was the difference between a Kennedy presidency and a Johnson presidency? And what would have caused people around Kennedy to want Kennedy to be removed in favor of Johnson? It would have been how Kennedy approached the Cold War. Kennedy started off as basically your standard Cold Warrior. Like, he actually ran and won the presidency on the grounds that the Republicans were too soft, with the missile gap and things like that. And then in the first year, he basically was a Cold Warrior. But then the Cuban Missile Crisis happens, and the world is almost annihilated. And it's there that you see a big shift in Kennedy's policies. And after that, he becomes a lot more dovish. He becomes a lot more pro-peace.
Right.
I know he was going up against the CIA with that too.
There's that. There's the fact that basically the CIA lied to him and told him that if they send in these Cuban revolutionaries to the beaches, that they won't need air support, because Kennedy specifically asked them. Because this operation was basically a holdover from the Eisenhower administration. It was basically being run by Nixon. And so Kennedy, it kind of got dropped in Kennedy's lap. He didn't really want it because he had this whole new policy toward Latin America at the time, where they were not going to be the Yankee imperialists of the past and all this stuff. So he didn't want this. And so he asked them, will this need air support, or can these guys do it on their own? And the CIA told him, no, it's cool, dude. Like, trust me, they can handle it. Whereas if you look at the internal memoranda at the time, they're all saying the exact opposite, that they're going to need air support and stuff like that. So basically what you have here is they thought they had this kind of weak, inexperienced, boyish president that they thought they could bully around, and that when the chips were down, Kennedy would go back on his word and kind of just buckle under and send in the planes and the Marines. And when Kennedy stuck to his guns, when the Cuban revolutionaries got pinned down and said, no, fuck you, I'm not doing it, I told you I'm not going to do it, and the Cubans got captured, that's basically when he first made a lot of enemies with the intelligence establishment.
And Also, Kennedy wanted to pull out of Vietnam, too.
Yes. Yes, he gave an order beginning after the 62 midterms to start. I think he withdraw a couple thousand troops, and the evidence isn't hardcore on this, but Arthur Schlesinger and other people say that according to conversations he had, he basically would have pulled out completely after the 64 re-elect.
Right, and Johnson basically doubled down on the war.
Johnson doubled down on the war. And Johnson doubled down on the Cold War in general. Because remember, Kennedy was also the first president to sign a nuclear arms limitation treaty. And right after that, he signed that, I forget when exactly, but not too long after, he gave a famous speech at American University. It's called the Kennedy Peace Speech. You can look it up. And he made what were some very radical statements in the context of the Cold War. He said, the Soviets, the Russians and the Americans, we both breathe the same air. We both want peace. We both want a better world for our children. He was saying a lot of very, very conciliatory things. Basically, he was basically signaling that he wanted the Cold War to be over, and he wanted to end it, and wanted to unravel it. And Khrushchev was overcome after that speech and said it was the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. And that's, of course, why he famously wept when he heard Kennedy was shot, because he was like, there goes my chance for peace.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So my basic theory is he wanted to end the Cold War, and that's basically why what happened to him, because it was in the interest of too many people that the Cold War not end, because of course war is big business, as we all know.
You know, these
war's big money.
Lockheed Martin, these type of,
military industrial complex, which Eisenhower. I think that's the bulk of his presidency. That's everything he did basically after the Cuban Missile Crisis was aimed toward ending that. And really even before that, like again with the Cuban invasion, other things as well. He originally met with Khrushchev very early on, and Khrushchev he met with him in Vienna and during the building the wall. Building the wall, right? And Kennedy had to kind of become the Cold Warrior again and start, testing nuclear missiles and agree on trying to put things in a more peaceful path after, they almost blew each other up during the missile crisis. So that's basically my theory.
That's a pretty solid one.
That's a really solid theory. It makes a lot of sense, actually.
So I don't know. What you guys can jump in now.
No, I agree. LBJ.
I gotta say,
earlier he had the most motive, he had the most means, and he had the most backing to do it too.
Right, and he had the most motive, he had the most means, and the proof is in the pudding. Especially in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Vietnam thing. I mean,
he seems like the linchpin.
I'm sorry, Adam. What did you say? I didn't hear what you said. I was asking you to go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, LBJ seems like the linchpin in the operation. Really,
the Bermuda Triangle somewhere.
Hey,
he's doing a lighter. He's not shit. Hey, yeah, Raiden, you were saying, that's your basic assault on the thing. Then we can
so I'm thinking on Johnson. I think it's pretty. If there's anyone who benefited from the killing and wanted it to happen, it would be Johnson. There's no one. So I think Johnson was the most active participant. And I think we should distinguish between active and passive participants. I think Johnson was there's obviously an active one, And then there were all other people like Bill Harvey, who was a CIA digging a hole under the Berlin Wall, or digging a tunnel under the Berlin Wall. Later brought on for Operation 40, which was the whole Cuba invasion thing, and basically, yeah, was basically a slave to alcohol. Was a total degenerate. Would come into restaurants with like multiple guns hanging from his belt, and would kind of when he would go into the Oval Office, would kind of put his belt and give it to a Secret Service man, like almost like he's into the saloon. Pretty clear he was an active participant. David Morales as well, who was a Cuban of Cuban origin, named. He was actively involved.
Came up.
Cord Meyer. Cord Meyer was probably the most senior active participant after Johnson, and he had great motive too, because if remember when I brought up Mary Pinchot Meyer, that's his wife.
Oh, right.
Woman basically Kennedy took Meyer's wife and made her his mistress, and Meyer basically was from who he called the whore of Babylon. So he definitely had the motive, because Kennedy basically cucked him, and he was a pretty high level CIA officer.
Bad decision.
Bad decision. Don't piss off a CIA man, right? Actually, would like smoke joints with Mary Pinchot Meyer, because she was basically a hippie and she brought weed into the White House. Yeah, it's really funny. Apparently, one time he's smoking a joint and he takes like a big pull, exhales. He's like, "Suppose the Russians were to launch some nukes right now. Suppose the Russians were to attack right now." It's like, well, that would be really bad, wouldn't it be, Mr. President? Like I said, but anyway, so
Kennedy
talk
about David Ferrie.
Yeah, we could talk about David Ferrie. So David Ferrie was like a real creep.
He was in a similar role with Oswald.
Yes. And didn't he have like fake eyebrows?
Hair on his body just like gradually fell out till his whole body was bald. So he just wore like this shitty wig and painted on his eyebrows. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I think he was like a pedophile too. He was involved with some weird shit. Him back to apartment all the time and stuff. And his apartment. Where have we heard people in powerful positions being involved in pedophilia?
It happens all the time.
Interesting. And there's there's a book called Dr. Mary's Monkey, which is it's a fantastic book. Take it with a grain of salt, but according to it, and this is just incidental to the actual topic of the book, but David Ferrie had one of his apartments was just loaded with lab rats. Like, it was just a lab rat storage facility loaded with cages full of rats. And he paid Oswald to basically just be a janitor in his apartment. And the purpose of it was they needed test subjects for CIA bioweapons, basically. They were using the simian virus number 40, which is a cross-species soft tissue cancer-causing virus. And this is a real thing. This is verified. They were using radiation to try and weaponize it so they could basically get her at any time. Well, isn't that interesting? Because didn't Jack Ruby die of cancer?
Yeah,
with
and
the
he was
rapidly
receiving.
developed cancer after he got locked up.
Yeah, and he said after he said he started wanting to talk to lawyers and these other people and basically say like he was going to talk, and he also complained of receiving random injections that he didn't understand.
Correct.
And against his will. Hit him like...
Isn't that just so interesting? And of course, isn't it just so interesting how all these people end up dying, right?
There's no way to account for stuff.
Mortality rate. Yeah, there's absolutely no way. Everyone related to the Kennedy assassination, they have a mortality rate that's like so far above the national average. Like in terms of suicides, like the people who were called for the House Select Committee on Assassinations, like that more people died related to that committee investigation than anyone in any committee investigation ever. It really makes you think.
Yeah, they all ended up dying pretty much. I mean,
that it does.
Strange.
I mean, Sam Giancana was one. Yep, strange, mysterious ways. Giancana ended up getting shot 5 times in the mouth. Oh, nothing going on there.
All right, well, coming up on the end of the second.
I guess so.
Yeah, since my internet is shitting the bed again, we should probably end up wrapping this up pretty soon. So, I think we covered a good bit of it. Thanks for all the information, Raiden.
All right.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on. I'm really glad you came on because this kind of biographical stuff about Johnson and JFK and stuff, it just doesn't really grab me. Like, keep shitloads of rats in their apartment do. I don't know what that says about me.
No problem.
Yeah, this has been really great. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. I mean, I find this sort of stuff fascinating. The Kennedy assassination was like my first big conspiracy theory. So,
well, right on, man. Well, thank you again, right. And Adam, as usual, thank you. And we're gonna listen to a creepypasta. This is Night Terrors, read by Bradshaw Wilson, as usual. And we're gonna take off. And we'll talk to you next week. Later.
Gayer than hell.
I've been told several times before I was an absolute nightmare to look after as a little kid. Between my fear of the dark and my sleeping problems, I apparently spent a lot of nights in my parents' bed, too afraid to sleep in my own room. Eventually, my parents got sick of the constant sleepless nights with me tossing and turning in their bed, and finally put their foot down, insisting I sleep in my own room. I respond in turn by flat out refusing to go to sleep without some kind of nightlight kept on. When my mom and dad tried to force the issue because they thought I needed to grow up, I'd sit there in bed screaming like a banshee and work myself into such a state I'd scratch the hell out of my arms and face and hit the wall until I had bruises everywhere. This apparently went on for years. Yet I can't remember any of it, which doesn't really surprise me because for some reason I can hardly remember anything before about 8 years old. It's weird though. Even now as an adult, I can't recall a single night that I didn't fall asleep with the PC or the television on in the background. Even when I would visit friends and stay over, I'd bring my old laptop with me so I'd have something to fall asleep to. I guess it's just one of those things that stuck with me. Some deep subconscious habit in the back of my mind somewhere that I can't get rid of. We've had some problems at home recently with the electricity thanks to a late bill, and we ended up having to get a meter installed in order to pay off the debt. I've tried to make sure I'm not wasting electricity whenever I can by switching off sockets and turning off lights when I leave rooms. Basically, any little thing that I could do to make a difference. I still can't bring myself to turn off the computer or television before I go to sleep, though. I just can't do it. The other night, I was sitting in bed and drifting off to sleep when I heard the meter beeping out in the hall, warning me that the electricity was about to run out. I think I sat there for about 10 minutes or so, listening to that bloody noise and dreading what was coming. Sure enough, the beeping stopped, and I heard the fan on the PC cut out as everything turned off, and I was left in total darkness. I lost my shit pretty hard and buried my head in my pillow, trying not to panic, when I suddenly heard the faintest noise in my ear.
Oh, Daniel, you have no idea how long I've been waiting for this moment.
It was at that moment all those memories from my childhood came rushing back to me, and I remembered that it wasn't me who'd been responsible for those scratches and bruises all over my body. And I suddenly realized exactly why I was so afraid of the dark.